When I first got to Texas, somebody told me it was very important for me to know about contract law, and I was given some reference points from that person directly. And then I went and did my own legal research. The first thing to understand about contract law in the United States that I understand is that there's no contract more binding than the Constitution. The Constitution is a contract with and by the people of the United States of America. And the same, I believe, can and should be said about the Constitution of different states. The state of Texas, for instance, has very specific constitutional matters of the formative articles of the Constitution regarding the impairment of contracts. But within the consideration of the impairment of contracts in the state of Texas are also considerations of mental capacity, or rather, mental competence when it comes to engaging in contract relations. Constitutionally speaking, the standard regarding determination of somebody's inability to engage in and participate in a contract is very high. And trying to declare somebody as unfit or incompetent in order to be able to engage in contracts and contract negotiations of their own, it's a very high bar in Texas. And I contend that means that if somebody says a contract is fixed and it does not allow for any negotiation or consideration, that there is a very strong challenge to the constitutionality of that contract to begin with. A. B. If you attempt to negotiate or engage in some negotiation around the contract, there are also three major standards that go into a determination about whether that contract is legally binding. And depending upon the intent and the disclosure at the onset and the impact of the attempt to perform in good faith that contract, with an understanding that performance later entails things that were intentionally not disclosed at the onset, with an understanding they were attempting to engage you in activities that were either knowingly illegal, i.e., extortion, or attempting to obligate you to something they did not disclose that they intended to obligate you to at the onset, can allow for that contract to be canceled or disgorged or resized depending upon the course of the contract and what needs to occur. It's not just a matter of terminating the contract. There is more than one possibility that can happen legally. If they refuse to disclose what they are by law required to disclose in order to get you to obligate yourself to the terms of that contract, then the question becomes, did they intentionally defraud you by refusing to reveal the intent at the onset and hence implicate themselves in crimes, including insofar as there may be crimes connected with performance of that contract, up to and including crimes connected to financial fraud or other things that would legally qualify as crimes? Or was it the sort of thing where they gave you a contract that was fixed at the beginning and said you were not entitled to negotiate any of the terms? If they did that, then there's a very good argument to be made that they did not assure that you were actually competent or qualified or capable of engaging in that which they were obligating you to, because they did not acquire a demonstration of your cognizability of the terms of the contract. And then from there, all of those other things come up for consideration. If they refuse to give you a hearing, if they refuse to let you get a copy of that contract that they say you're held to, which may have been altered in the course of the contract, which may have been submitted as evidence outside of what you have had access to, that has other requirements or obligations that do not match the copy or the version you have, or you have had yours stolen, or somebody has altered the electronic version in order to reflect information that is inaccurate from what you engaged at the onset, All of these things are also contestable, but more than that, I contend this, that depending on the specifics of the contract and who expects to be accorded what sort of acknowledgement regarding their authority, not only in engaging the contract, but in performance of the contract, much less holding somebody else accountable to performance of that contract, they have to demonstrate themselves that they have not attempted to try to get away with deceiving somebody in upholding the terms of a fraudulently engaged contract. So if it is proven that they have altered the contract they're trying to present on the official record, then that needs to be acknowledged as evidence about their intent to defraud and to deceive from the onset. And if it comes to their attention that there have been alteration of the official record, including the official version of the contract as it is presented in evidence, then they need to be open to the contestation and the challenge and be able to back it up with their own evidence. And if there's been something to tamper with their evidence, then they need to be able to demonstrate that they've made a good faith effort to do everything they can to assure the integrity of the evidence they do have, and that they have provided for what would need to be provided in order to address any questions or qualms that would come up with that provision. They don't have an entitlement to tamper with evidence and then try to tell you you need to be obligated to adhering to the terms of things that they have submitted as evidence of performance of obligations that were not performed, without making sure that they can back up the integrity of the agreement to begin with. And if it requires a specific time frame in order to be able to establish intent, then there needs to also be considered, well, for whom and with whom was it intended that one would engage in the performance of these obligations. You can't just keep trading and swapping out performers until you get what you like and then say, you know what, I'll stick with that. That also shows an intent to defraud from the onset, especially if you're talking about contracts involving national assets and you either A, misrepresent to someone that they are considered an asset of your nation, or B, you're using people that are not national assets as a way to offset liabilities associated with expropriation of national assets. I'm just saying that's very basic, but I'm not a national actor, right? I mean, I'm not a national actor in the United States. They keep trying to get me over there.